I'm going to give you an extra word of the week, which is bailiwick, because it does indeed mean one's sphere of operations or area of interest.
I am the word queen this week.
You are the word queen. Did you bring a word of your own? Because I'm going for a hyphenated one this week.
Oh, I don't know if I can allow that, Judith.
No, I am so in credit for hyphenated words. You've been using 2s and 3s for months.
That's true. Go on then. What is it?
Welcome to Own It, Your Business and Your Life, with Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. In this podcast, we're going to cover everything you need to embrace to become a successful entrepreneur, marketing, money, and much, much more. How to create a business doing just what you love. How to own it, your business and your life. This one will be fast, funny, feisty, and very lively. So sit back and enjoy the show.
Morning, Judith. How are you this morning? It's fabulous in Shoreham. Fabulous.
Hello, Nicola. I'm fine. I think it has the potential to be fabulous. There is sunshine here. I wouldn't say it's fabulous. That's a bit overcast, but promising.
Yeah, I've got those nice wispy cirrus clouds, and you know where the planes go over it, so...
Yes, mine are not wispy. Mine are a bit more butch than that.
A bit more butch. But the plane trails are reminding me of how I'm suffering from post-holiday blues. And I don't normally get that. I'm normally quite happy to get home and get cracking and everything. But this week I felt very... quite down, actually, and restless, very restless. I caught myself watching... A Place in the Sun the other day, you know, where they try and find them a home in England and then a home wherever they want to go and live. And that's always a bad sign.
Somebody who shall remain nameless, who we both know, was telling me that her husband records all of those. And I thought, well, really, they're not record-worthy, those programmes, are they?
Well, you have to record them if you're going to watch them because they repeat themselves so many times. You have to be able to whiz through the repeating bits.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, it's much more cunning. But no, I don't know what it is, whether it's because I genuinely had a week off and I'm now back. I definitely feel restless. I feel like I want to explore the possibility of living abroad again. But the person who I would do that with is...
I'll tell you the interesting thing as well. I was thinking about this in the last 7 days, is that we managed to do the podcast when you were in Vegas, but we failed when you were in Malta and when you were in Stupor, which bodes ill for overseas life. And I know you've had a go at it. You had a go at it in Greece before and then Spain, and it wasn't easy. Do you remember? And it's on my life plan as well. And I the third world, the places that we want to live away from all the stress and the strife, they don't have what we take for granted broadband wise.
Vegas was good because the hotel had great broadband.
Well, Vegas is not third world. It's not anywhere we would want to live. You might want to live there. It's not anywhere I would want to live. You might, of course.
But in Spain and Greece, as soon as I'd waited the mandatory 2 weeks, which you actually have to wait in the UK as well to get any kind of broadband, once the native broadband came in, the static, fixed broadband, it was absolutely fine. It was only in the 2 weeks preceding that it was difficult.
Yeah, I'm not convinced. I think that the laptop lifestyle will always come with a compromise Wi-Fi wise.
Well, people seem to manage it, don't they? They seem to travel all around the world.
I think manage is the point. We are very impatient if we don't get it lickety split. In fact, I'm always on to BT saying, can't it go faster?
Yeah.
Well, we would inevitably have to accept a drop in that. And unfortunately, we've been schooled the wrong way around. We've been schooled to expect this really fast stuff. And the countries where you might want to live and where I want to live you're just grateful if you get it, I think.
It's true. Or we could look on it as a benefit because it would force us to slow down a little bit.
Well, absolutely. That's the whole point of being in these places and why they're attractive, actually.
It's definitely the heat. I think the in the few days since I've been back, the weather has been absolutely appalling. I mean, we were picked up at Gatwick in torrential rain, and I think that definitely didn't help. But now, so what I'm doing now is I'm looking around me and thinking all the things that are niggling at me that I don't like, and toleration busting is a great way to beat the holiday blues, I've found.
Well, August is a great time for toleration busting.
It's like
it's the equivalent of buying a new pencil case and protractor for the beginning of the September term.
I used to love that. Oh my God! I'm going to tell you something about that in our Who or What's Impressed, because someone is doing just that. So what's fueled your fire this week then?
Well, I'm not ready to go on to that section yet because you haven't asked me about my week.
No, sorry.
You are on post-holiday come down. I am just beginning my holidays, and my holidays are 5 weeks long. I'm having the whole of August and the first week of September off. Now, not 100%, just from my one-to-one coaching, so my groups go on and so forth. But this week, the first week of August, it's as different from last week as it's possible to be. Last week was absolutely rammed. And this week, my goal is, I feel like a kid out of school actually, my goal is to reduce screen time by at least 50%.
And how are you tracking that?
Well, today I'm going to do this podcast and the next podcast, the show notes, and get off.
So you're tracking old school by actually just doing it. You haven't got some.
Well, I mean, my diary, I obey my diary, and it's just got half as much in it as normal. And I have to get away from the screens. They give me headaches if I spend too long at them.
Yeah, absolutely. I have been trying to go into the garden and read my book occasionally, so because that was one of the things I really enjoyed on holiday, getting back into fiction.
Oh, I've got two. I've read one fabulous book already, which I'll tell you about another time. And in the middle of the night, I found another good one, so I'm excited.
Didn't you share the most marvellous article about how reading fiction is so crucial for creativity?
Absolutely, yes. And that man, you must watch every speech he's ever done. He's an absolute genius.
Yeah, and I love the thing about how China the Chinese software people were trying to work out why they were only ever able to copy software quickly, granted, and well, but how they weren't innovating their own software. And they realised that they interviewed all of the people at Google and all the top places in the US, and then found that a lot of the geeks there read science fiction when they were kids. So they've now put science fiction on the menu for Chinese children.
I actually think they said they weren't reading at all. No fiction was too much fun, weren't they?
Yeah, probably, yeah. But I've read a lot of science fiction when I was a kid, and I definitely think it fueled my imagination. I absolutely loved it. So fiction's good, and fueling your fire is all about taking less time at the screen and.
No. That's the holiday plan. What's fueled my fire is something completely different. Do you want to talk about that now?
Oh yes, of course. Sorry, I'm all over the shop today, aren't I?
Yes. I've got a little bit of spare time, so I'm learning something new. Unfortunately, I have to learn it at the screen, so I have to limit myself to about an hour a day on that, and I'm going to tell you about it next week. I mentioned it last week. It's the matched betting, which is a very, very confusing name. So no gambling goes on in it at all. It's a system, and you do as you're told, which is quite hard for a creator, I must say. Emma, my partner in the cleaning biz, who's a Lord accumulator like Steve, and she is leaping ahead because she's much better at doing as she's told, and systems and spreadsheets and all that kind of thing. However, despite the fact that I'm not naturally inclined towards doing as I'm told, I am doing as I'm told, and it is working, and it's fun. My subliminal audios and videos I've been doing since I started doing them on the 10th of May. I'm still doing them every day. There's one of those for accelerated learning. So I'm doing that one quite a lot at the moment to help me with learning something new. Not that we don't love learning new things, but learning something new that's not in your typical, following a young man in his 20s teaching an old lady in her 60s how to do something by video wouldn't be my number one choice of holiday activity. It's the outcome that I want.
So you put yourself through any amount of pain to get there.
Well, not any amount, an hour a day, but because it's working, because you get such an early return on it, what he does is it's absolutely, I'll show you because you'll love it, it's absolutely genius. He put himself through university using this system. I'm going to tell you more about it next week, but he has created a membership site, and at the free level of membership, you make enough money to pay for his paid level of membership.
Oh, that sounds cool.
Oh, absolutely genius idea. And actually, it's something we both need to think about. What can you do at the free level that helps people make enough to pay for your paid level?
Yes, well, don't get me started on that one because in my experience, anyone comes in at the free level doesn't actually take any action. So you are obviously in a minority there.
Well, no, I don't think I am in this because the thing is, it's a fast start thing. So literally, I think his monthly subscription is, let's say, £17, and I made £28 in the first 2 days. So what he's doing is proving why you should pay more, because actually, if you only ever stay at the free level, all you'll ever do is make that 28 quid.
Yeah.
But he's given you enough money to pay for the first month. Genius.
Yeah, well, I want to know more about it because it sounds like fun. And I've just remembered the word I was grasping for earlier. It's ballywick. You like a nice word, don't you?
I do know what bailiwick means, but tell me, well, I've heard of it. I've forgotten what I'd be hard-pressed to define it. What context were you using it in?
Well, you know when you were saying it's not in my blah and you...
Oh, yes. It's not in my zone of genius, Nicola.
Yeah. I think it means ballpark, ballywick. A ballpark as in cricket ground or something. We'll have to investigate that one because the word that it popped into my head.
I'm not convinced, actually, but keep talking. Tell me what's fueled your fire.
What's fueled my fire has been, as always, listening to podcasts. I listened to one really, really brilliant one the other night on the Bootstrapped with Kids podcast. And one of the chaps is actually, they've given up their home. He's got 3 or 4 children and they're in a big RV travelling around America.
Oh.
And he is he is so funny, this chap. He does swear a lot, so do be prepared. And well, that makes me laugh anyway. But he is the most. He sort of sounds like a tech hippie, if you know what I mean. And
did you tell us his name? Sorry, I was too busy looking up the word bailiwick. Did you tell us his name?
Brecht. Oh, hang on. Let me just look him up. Bootstrapped with Kids podcast. Bootstrapped with Kids. Bootstrapped. I'm so sorry. It's Bootstrapped Jewel, or is it? Hang on a second. No, it's Bootstrapped with Kids, definitely, because it's got a horrible picture of a squalling child on the front of the podcast, and I don't like it at all. But the actual podcast.
Okay, so bootstrap or bootstrapped?
Past tense. Bootstrappedwithkids.com.
Yeah, okay.
I'm just looking it up now. Here we are, a real life business podcast for grown-ups. Yeah, and it is for grown-ups too, because he does swear a lot. But let's go to the episode, and I will tell you exactly which episode it was. It was the one I was listening to, which really inspired me. It was, here we are, Fear Not, Forge Ahead, episode 102. Scott Ewell and Brecht someone. And it was Brecht Palumbo. And it was absolutely brilliant because he'd come back for a month with his wife and kids in this RV to visit family, and it was obviously his sort of, and then they're just about to take off again. And he was saying the whole episode talks about the absolute pile of negative, limiting, fear-mongering rubbish that they get told about their lifestyle and the way they live. And they were exploring in this podcast whether people are genuinely fearful for them, whether they just watch too much news, whether it's challenging the established way of life, so the people that they're talking to feel threatened. And it was just, he said it's even worse than when he told them he was coming out of corporate life and starting his own business. And this is a chap, he's doing really, really well. His business is making a fortune. And it's just, he says, it's just astonishing. People just can't seem to look past the cubicle. And in America, that whole thing, they talked about the origins of how we all used to do something for work that we were, if we were lucky, used to do things for work that was good for us. We were good at. So you'd have a trade, perhaps you had an aptitude, so you'd get apprenticed to someone. And you do a job that actually added value to society, and you got satisfaction out of doing a job well because you were probably doing something that you had a bit of an aptitude for, and you were probably, there was nobody in between you and the person who bought the service or the product that you were producing. And how everybody got so much value.
you were probably making something as well.
Yeah, exactly. And he said how distant it is. And it was only really in the 1920s that corporate life started to grow up. And the first corporations were invented to create value for society. But now all these poor people sitting in cubicles with, pushing spreadsheets around with absolutely no idea what value they're giving to society. And I thought it was a really thought-provoking podcast episode. I was listening to it and I thought this is just astonishing, and everybody ought to listen to it and question what they're doing. So that fueled my father rather well, I thought.
Yeah, and actually does have a direct bearing on what I'm going to bring to Client Challenge of the Week.
Oh, exciting. I love it when things segue neatly.
Do you feel isolated and alone in running your own home-based business? Do you have worries, doubts, fears and resistance which sometimes make you feel like giving up? Don't worry, you're not alone. In fact, you're perfectly normal. It can be scary all by yourself. But what if you could learn how to become a confident business owner, how to trust yourself more and grow your income, relax and be more creative and productive? Small Business Big Magic is a unique business mentoring group providing grounded practical support and advice, fast responses to your questions, inspiration and solutions to boost your clarity and help you find direction, focus and success in your life and business. Join Small Business Big Magic today for the friendship and encouragement of others just like you and the enthusiasm of a coach who gets you and your business. There's big magic for your small business at judithmorgan.com.
It is a close cousin. I think you'll see the connection. And I wrote last week's newsletter about it. It's Comparisonitis. And the people who were trying to keep him safe were sort of saying that in a funny sort of a way. They're saying, don't show us up by being different. And Comparisonitis, unfortunately, is the cousin that it is to that. I have clients who are in groups will compare themselves to others and say, look at Facebook and do the same thing, and make assumptions about others and can find themselves wanting. So they'll make assumptions about other people's success, well, anything really, about anything about another person, who may or may not be doing well. They don't know. I know, obviously, because I'm in the confidence of the client. But in so doing, they also completely overlook or seriously underestimate their own achievements. It's not a competition. Nothing in this life is a competition. I keep getting these emails every day from these web people who say, are you worried about why the competition is stealing your leads? No, I'm not. I never give it a thought. Bog off. Comparisonitis. I mean, I'll tell you what I'm thinking. You've probably never done this, and I've never done it either, but many of our listeners have done it, and I've watched people do it. When you redecorate a living room, if you do it properly, or any room, if you do it properly, you strip it all the way down to nothing, don't you?
Yeah.
And then you fill in all the holes, and it looks like shit. And it only looks good when you put the last top coat on. And in any stage you were looking at that development, you would think it looked bad. But actually, it's part of the journey towards looking good. So my clients have started to suffer from this quite badly, and I don't encourage it. So that it's something they've invented. I don't feel it myself. I'm imagining you don't much either, Nicola, but it's a real problem out there.
God, so what do you think's triggered it in your groups?
Well, I think it's a little bit like that chap you were just telling us about. What triggered all the fears that all those, his friends and family are laying at his door.
He's got this theory that they watch the news too much, and that just it generates a climate of fear. And he goes further on the old conspiracy theory, and he says that actually that's why the news is full of bad news, because it makes people feel better if their lives, it's a bit like watching EastEnders, it makes people feel better if their lives aren't quite as bad as what they're hearing on the news. But worse than that, it's being proliferated by the powers that be, because a fearful population is a population that's easier to manipulate.
I agree with that, and I'm going to talk more about that next week. But let's go back to Comparisonitis. Do you ever compare yourself to another human being and feel good because you think you're doing better than them?
No.
Me neither.
But
So do you do the opposite? Do you do the opposite?
On occasions, not so much nowadays, but I did when I was failing badly and didn't know which way to turn.
And how many years has it taken you to get to the place in business where you are today?
Well, I'm an overnight success, as you know, Judith.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Well, I mean, in some ways, it was comparisonitis that made me take the first steps towards taking responsibility for my own life, because I got to the point when I was 48, so that's about 15 years ago, that I looked around me and I thought, hang on a minute, I'm as bright as everyone else. I might not have as many exams as they do, but I'm definitely as bright as they are. I'm as tall as someone else. I have brown hair like other people who are successful. I can speak English like other people who are successful. So it was comparisonitis that really jolted me into thinking, I'm as good as these people who are successful. Therefore, they must know something I don't, and all I've got to do is go and find it. So that was quite a positive comparisonitis. But it's been at least 15 years since I woke up that day and realised that I had to learn stuff different if I was going to end up doing things different.
Yeah, I don't think it's just in my client groups. I notice it all over Facebook. The reason why people say, right, I'm having a month off Facebook, is because they feel uncomfortable, because what people tend to share on Facebook is, glorious stories. They don't share much when things are going less well.
Absolutely, yeah, no, that's right, and I'm really lucky because I'm a positive, glass half full, glass refillable, as I think you shared the other day, kind of girl. So it doesn't really affect me much. But I think if you're of a slightly negative mindset, or you're not quite as optimistic, or when I was in the place where I didn't know what to do next and nothing was working, I definitely felt that other people were doing really well and there was something fatally flawed in me, and that's why I wasn't succeeding again. But that passed as soon as I got a grip and started to take action again.
So I'm wondering if there's something that we can come up with, the antidote to comparisonitis. If you accidentally or on purpose find yourself comparing yourself and your apparent success to somebody else and marking yourself down and marking that person up on an assumption, because frankly, what do we call it? An hallucination, because frankly, you've no idea what's going on in that person's life. What would we recommend?
I would recommend that you reach out to that person and say, absolutely awesome that you've done blah 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 blah, whatever they posted. I'm really impressed with your progress, and I wondered if you could share one tip. What do you think's made the difference for you to achieve what you did there?
So a little bit of research.
Yeah, just ask them, because I tell you what will happen is, I'm in this Slack group, and I've just achieved a milestone in startup land, and I put it in there just to encourage everyone, and everybody came back with congratulations, and I felt really uncomfortable. I said, yeah, it's only been a 5-year slog, working long hours and weekends and things. So I sort of wanted to share that it hadn't just happened accidentally, despite me, and that it was something that if you do the groundwork, it can happen to everybody. So I think if you reach out to the person who you're feeling inferior to, congratulate them on their achievement and ask them for their one tip that they felt made the difference. I think they'll come back and tell you what a slog it's been and what they've had to overcome, what obstacles they've had to overcome to get there. I think you'll get a peek behind the veil, is it, or the kimono, or whatever it's called.
Yes.
Yeah, the overnight success kimono will be opened for you, and you will see that it's been a lot of hard work behind there. So yeah, that's what I would do. I think definitely take some positive action, and it's a bit like when you're feeling a bit down, isn't it? Everyone says get up from the computer, go for a walk, take some physical action. I would just take one bit of action to move your business forward, rather than feeling helpless and hopeless and useless and not as good as everybody else. Just think, well, these people have just got where they have by taking action. So what one bit of action can I take today?
Well, I would say stop it immediately. That's my favourite coaching tool. Stop it immediately. You're making it up. You don't know the truth. Mind your own knitting. Crack on. What can you do? I do like the walk idea, actually, because shake it off. We could do a Taylor Swift song. It's not real. You've no idea what somebody. Don't stop assuming things.
I love the way you just casually dropped a Taylor Swift song in there. faves at the moment?
No, not at the moment, no, but I don't mind a touch of Taylor Swift now and again, Nicola.
I got to say, I enjoy her enormously in interviews. She's very funny and down to earth, isn't she?
She's got a fabulous social media thing going on, and I love all that giving back and giving presents to her fans and relationships with her fans and everything. She does that very well. Now, I'm going to give you an extra word of the week, which is bailiwick, because it does indeed mean one sphere of operations or area of interest.
I am the word queen this week.
You are the word queen. Did you bring a word of your own? Because I'm going for a hyphenated one this week.
Oh, I don't know if I can allow that, Judith.
No, I am so in credit for hyphenated words. You've been using 2s and 3s for months.
That's true. Go on then. What is it?
I'm going for cold calling.
Oh.
Because I have two clients I've been encouraging to do that, and one client who's actually doing it. There are some areas of business building that require it. Never in mine, and it wouldn't have worked in mine. One lady phoned in yesterday, I think it was, and told me that she was getting on really well with it. And she sent me an email in the last 10 days that said, on my first day I did 5 calls, one really rude man. And then she said, but later in the day, after I followed it up with an email, he sent me a really charming email, changing his mind completely, praising my new website and saying he would definitely be in touch. So you never know. So what I've built here, I told her it would be it's the hardest thing she'll ever have to do in building her business. She'll never have to do anything harder than that. And it builds resilience, which I don't think is a bad thing. So hurrah for the cold callers. How brave is she?
Well, I mean, cold calling strikes utter terror into my heart. I can't even call someone without an appointment. Even if I know them, they're my friend. So I have to have an appointment to speak to friends even. But no, that is awesome. And there are people out there who make a living at it. And
well, of course, like everything, it gets easier. After that first day, I tell you what I always recommend clients do. You draw up a list of 100 people and you start at the bottom with the ones you don't really care about. And you be prepared to be surprised, actually. Yes, most of them will be bored. Yes, you'll be learning your spiel. But one person down there in the bottom 10, you'll call at exactly the right time on exactly right the day. They'll be charming and off you go. Practice on the bottom 50% of your list that you don't give a hoot about, really. And then by the time you get to the top of the list, that the people you do really want to work with, you'll be really good at it and you'll be tough.
So what kind of businesses need to be cold calling in this day and age then, Judith?
I don't really want to say, actually, because it would out my 2 clients that I'm thinking of. One, yes, I don't really want to say, to be honest. I think cold calling, if you've identified the sort of client that you want to work with and you are a telephone type of a person, so let's say right-hand side on the wealth
supporter, deal maker, kind of that.
Star supporter.
Yeah.
A people person. You've got a brand new website, no intention of blogging, you don't know anything about working online, you do know about people, you've got some connections. People who are effectively using the cold call to get a meeting, relationship building. When I worked for my last ever accounting client, I used to sit near the boy whose job it was to do the cold calling, and I learned so much by listening to him. He wasn't very old. What he did was, in cold calling, all he was seeking to do, that was to open the doors to a relationship. So the company that he was working for were selling big corporate events, and you had to go through a pitch procedure to be even in with a chance. What they call the procurement department would make you fill out a form. So all he was trying to do was open a relationship, achieve rapport with somebody, find out if they used external people to do their annual conference. What was the pitch procedure? When is the next annual conference? When do they agree the pitch for the next annual conference? Would it be okay if we attempted to, and would it be okay if I called you again in 6 months? So it was a really long thing. And because he was so charming, they would enjoy the conversation, and he would get permission to call them again at the right time. And if they didn't get it this year, they'd keep doing that. So you're opening a relationship. And the 2 clients that I have in mind, that seems the most appropriate route, because they're starting from a cold start, and it isn't the sort of business that you and I have had, which is about online. So it might be people facing or events based.
Yeah. There's 2 books I can recommend on this one. They cover it quite well in Predictable Revenue by Aaron Ross. And they talk about how if you've got it's good for startup businesses actually, because often you've got one person on the team who is responsible for lead gen and cold calling and closing. And what they say in that book is if you've got one person doing it all, they've definitely got to zone their diary, because picking up the phone and calling lots of people is a different kind of creative energy to the person who then closes.
Certainly this guy didn't close deals. He would occasionally go to that sort of meeting, but that wasn't his job. His job was to open up the relationship.
So anyone listening who is doing everything in their own business around that, so generating the relationships initially, following up the leads to create a meeting or whatever, and then closing, try and zone your diary, because you'll do much better if you try and do, say, 20 calls in one day and then do some follow-up another day and things. Because
so wear a different hat. You said you had a couple of resources. Do you remember the other one?
One's Predictable Revenue, and the other one is gone out of my head completely. No, I'll come back to it.
Send it to me later. Tell me about your word of the week.
My word of the week is one. I've started. I was.
1 moment, caller. WON or ONE?
ONE.
Okay.
I might have had it before, but it's a completely different context this time. So, so do forgive me if I'm duplicating. I was thinking what I could do on Periscope, because I've been watching a few Periscopes. It's been quite good fun. Chris Moyles of ex of Radio 1 was listening into one of my Periscopes the other day, which was quite interesting because he's got 57,000 followers. I was thinking, what can I do that's quick and easy on Periscope every single day, or every single weekday anyway? And I was thinking it needs to be something informal. It needs to be something I don't necessarily want to preserve for posterity. It needs to have some sort of structure, because I work best with a simple structure. And I was in the shower, and all the best ideas come in the shower, as we know. And it came to me that I could do the what one thing, because I do sit down every day with my diary and think, okay, out of all the things I could do today, what's the one most important thing I could do to move the business along? And I'm not talking about the stuff you actually have to do, like turn up for client calls and do Facebook ads and all that stuff. I'm talking about the one thing to move your business development along. And so I find it quite easy to identify the one thing that I should do that day. Whether I do it or not is another matter entirely. So I thought it would be great for accountability for me, and also for encouraging people to tune in to the what one thing, and perhaps say, oh, I've got a couple of things, which one should I do? And get a bit of feedback on that front. So I started doing it on Sunday. And because I was so much in the moment and wanting to do it and not get all hung up about the background and whether I had my makeup on and all that stuff, I did it in my curlers. Because I've got this new thing now. It's a productivity hack. I'm not blow drying my hair every day, but I put my fringe in curlers because I like my fringe to be smooth and have a bit of lift. And I thought, well, bugger this. I'm just going to go into the garden and do this Periscope in my curlers. And I got so much positive reaction from it. I have people commenting from all over the world how they're brilliant they thought it was that I just done it. And it means that no matter how bad I look in future doing this Periscope, I'm never going to look that bad. And the funniest bit was I did the reveal at the end. So I took the curlers out at the end of the Periscope and showed them how gorgeous my fringe looked. So there you go. What it's called, if you do a search on Twitter, hashtag what one thing, then you'll be able to find the show and watch the back episodes if you feel so inclined.
Right, so project updates. You go first.
Well, it's just been a sort of settling down week, really. I came back to close a lovely client. Well, close. I mean, he closed himself, to be fair, from Australia. And it really has just been a week of looking at all my ad campaigns for my clients anew and just, tweaking them a little bit, moving some over from optimize for clicks to optimize for leads, and just really making sure that their budgets are being spent in the most optimized manner. So a week of settling down for me.
Okay. Well, I am a month into something I put some money into. On the 3rd of July, I put $1,350 into something in the nature of sports trading. It's 100% passive, which is exactly the opposite of the one I've been learning about, which is 100% active, which is why I'm telling you about one this week and one next week. And it returns 6 to 7% a week. So I've made $404 from doing absolutely nothing. My job is to sit back and count the money, which I quite enjoy. Every Tuesday morning we get paid. You can start much lower than I did. Of course, I went in at the top level. You can start at $310, and you can trade up all the way to $5, $10, $8, $30, and then my $1,350. Now, you don't need to learn about sports trading, although you can if you want to. It's quite interesting if that lights your candle. And actually, it becomes more interesting as you start making money. So they do send you tips, which you can completely ignore. They do send you training, which you can completely ignore. None of it's required. But as you get more interested in how are they making that 6 or 7% a week, you do tend to have a footle around that. But I just wanted to tell you the story of one lady who got in 5 months ahead of me, who's now withdrawing $1,000 a week to pay off her credit card debts, which seems to me to be a very worthy goal.
A very worthy goal, especially coming from something that most people would think is a little bit iffy.
Yeah, well, it's done for you. Dicky iffy is not the words I use. Risky is a word I would use because nobody pays you 6 or 7% a week. If you want risk-free, you get, is it 0.0 something from, your high street bank. 6 to 7% a week, people are taking risks with your money. But I didn't tell anybody about this for 4 weeks, but $82, $82, $82 and $93 and a $65 referral fee means I'm $404 up in a month, and I don't think that's bad going, Nicola.
Well, I definitely want to know more about it because as a poker player, I don't have any issues around the whole betting thing. So
yeah. So this one is being done for you. It's 100% passive. So actually, I have no idea what they're betting on. I do know it's sport, but I don't know what bets they're placing or anything.
Well, very cool. I want to know more about it.
Yes.
Because that is, as you say, 6% a week, not bad at all.
No, well, obviously a little bit edgy. It's not safe. And as one of my advisors says, never put any money into anything that you can't afford to lose.
Well, absolutely, yes. And that's the point, isn't it? When I go to a sporting event, in fact, someone who shall remain nameless was trying to encourage me to go to the Dogs on Saturday night. And I've been once before. I quite enjoyed it, but I'd like to encompass, when I go to Goodwood Racing, for example, I like to think, how much money am I prepared to spend on this day out? And then my betting budget comes out of that.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know if you saw it, but it was the third and final of three programmes on BBC about Britain at the bookies this week. And that was at the Dogs a lot. A lot of the dog tracks have shut down, and betting on the Dogs is a rather extraordinary, old-fashioned, outdated thing. But I have been to the Wimbledon dog track once. I'm not even sure the Wimbledon dog track is one of the ones that survived. But there you go. I do think it's quite fascinating watching, on a completely different subject, actually, watching the old families that run the trackside betting, where they do it all in their heads with tic-tac-toe and everything. Fascinating.
Well, I actually know someone who makes a full-time living from betting on the Dogs. He spends a lot of time at the Hove Greyhound Stadium.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. Yeah,
he does make a full-time living at it. He's extremely good at it. He's also a very good poker player, as you'd expect.
So now, moving swiftly along, tell me who or what has impressed you this week.
Well, I've been, still my obsession with Periscope continues, even though Manesh and I have agreed that Nomadcast is the better platform. But it turns out that Periscope is, because it's got so much investment money behind it, they are going to go landscape eventually, and that's one of the biggest limitations for me at the moment. But there is lots of little apps springing up around to help it, and there are two people who are doing particularly brilliant jobs on Periscope. So if you are vaguely interested in Periscope and you want to see who's doing it well, I would definitely say follow Chris Ducker. Chris Ducker is a Brit who he actually wrote a best-selling book on outsourcing, and he runs an outsourcing company in the Philippines, and he lives in the Philippines, got a beautiful, beautiful wife and a lovely little boy, and he is really Mr. Poster Boy for outsourcing. And apart from the other chap whose name escapes me, there's two of them who do really well with it, but he's a Brit, so I'm particularly interested in him. He does periscoping really, really well. He's on perhaps once or twice a day. He's doing a lot of things like market research. He gets a huge following whenever he goes online. He was doing some market research about a UK event the other day, and I hooked him up with the guy who did the Infusionsoft Users Conference I spoke at up in Cheltenham. And I wouldn't have been able to get anywhere near Chris Ducker in any other well, I might have done, to be honest, but in most lifetimes I wouldn't have been able to get near him. And the fact that he was periscoping and I was able to ask him a question on Periscope, and he said, just tweet me, and then I tweeted him, and then he came back to me with his private email address. It's a brilliant way of getting closer to people and making connections, because it's still the wide wild west on Periscope. And the other chap who's doing it really, really well is Pat Flynn of Smart Passive Income, who does everything really, really well. But he was periscoping from Podcast Movement, the conference the other day, and he just went out in one of the sessions and just walked around the hallway, where everyone had their stands and everyone was hobnobbing and networking. And he was just literally spontaneously interviewing people on the spot. And he actually got interviewed by a radio station on the spot as well. And he was periscoping the whole thing. And I watched a great one yesterday with Gary Vaynerchuk, of VaynerMedia and Wine Library TV, and he actually recorded one of his YouTube shows, but he was periscoping it live at the same time, and he was absolutely brilliant. And so if you want to see 3 examples of people doing it well, it's Chris Ducker, Pat Flynn and Gary Vaynerchuk.
Marvellous.
And what about you? What's impressed you this week?
Emails that begin, I hope you don't mind my asking. No, I certainly do not. If you don't ask, you don't always get. And I think you'll be amazed by what you do get, how generous people are with their time. Ask, always ask. What's the worst that can happen?
My mum always used to say, if you ask, brackets, nicely and politely, if you don't ask, brackets, nicely and politely, you don't get.
Yeah. And
that's always stuck in my mind.
Yeah, I do like it. I hope you don't mind my asking. No, I don't.
No, I don't. Go on, get stuck in. Ask. I'm dying.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, it's the nosy and curious. It's a brilliant way of opening an email, isn't it?
Yeah, I really. Usually they're sort of personal appeals for help, and I'm delighted to help people by email always.
I got a great one the other day. I hope you don't mind me asking, but I'd love to sign up for your Facebook ad service. But I wondered if you could bear the VAT for the first 3 months, because it's the VAT that's stopping me going ahead.
Well, I think that's a cheeky ask, but good on them for asking.
Well, that's what I said. I said I admire your style, but A, I'm not sure it's legal, and B, if it's the 20% on top that's stopping you going ahead, then I'm afraid you're not really in a place where you should be considering paying someone else to do your Facebook ads in the first place.
Good on them for asking.
Yeah, absolutely true. Yeah. So I said, go and use the money you would pay me to do it. You're in my Facebook ads group anyway. Go and learn what I've taught you. And use the money you would have paid me, but including the VAT element, and get your own ads going, and then come back to me when you're ready.
Yeah.
But yes, you're right. I love being asked cheeky things, even cheeky things. Good stuff. All right, that's us for this week then.
It is.
Thank you very much for joining me, and we'll talk to you next week. Okay.
Yeah.
Bye
for now.
You've been listening to Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. The podcast is called Own It, Your Business and Your Life. Do come and visit us at ownitthepodcast.com. We'd love to hear your feedback. You can find out more about Judith and visit her on her website at judithmorgan.com, and you can find Nicola at nicolacairncross.com.